What's going on, guys? My name is El De Niro, and welcome to episode 79 of The Midnight Hour. First up, I want to say I'm really sorry that it's been so long. It's been 3 weeks, which is a long time for there to be a gap in between new episodes, but it's also good to refresh your minds with some older episodes to show the evolution of the podcast and to remind everyone that Jack still exists, and obviously we all hope that he comes back to the podcast someday, and I'm sure he will in some capacity, even if it is in like a guest role for, one show a year or something like that. But this episode that you're about to hear is a really good return episode, if I do say so myself. I had a lot of fun researching it and even more fun recording it. It's with myself and Dr. John, and it is a discussion on conspiracies, actual conspiracies that actually happened. There's no hysteria or panic or speculation or any lizard people mentions or anything like that. This is a topic that I would have previously brushed off with the iron fist of skepticism that I've approached all sorts of conspiracy theory discussions over the last few years, but I did want to make the point that I'm not completely closed-minded, and I do believe that there are perfectly legitimate reasons to question anybody in authority, and basically just to, show that I'm not an ideologue. But also, it's just a really interesting thing to ponder and think about, especially in this day and age. We list off several false flag operations that have taken place, and we'll explain what a false flag operation is. And we also just discuss many actual conspiracies that occurred and that are in the public domain that you can research on your computer yourself when you're finished listening. You can come to us and tell us if we did anything wrong. But this episode is also, even though it's a really serious topic, a very light-hearted take, I think. Even a lot of the things we say, perfectly legitimate, serious points, but we have a lot of fun in this episode. Anyway, if you want to discuss the episode further, there is a comment section on whatever platform you're listening to this on. Apart from iTunes, I don't think you can comment on iTunes, but you can leave a review, and I thank you for doing so. But mainly, I would like you guys to go to the subreddit, which is reddit.com/r/midnighthour. I'm going to make a website pretty soon. I actually inquired as to the availability of midnighthour.com or themidnighthour.com. It's a domain that's up, but there's no website there, and it is for sale. So anyway, I inquired. They got back to me. It cost 10 grand. 10 grand for a fucking domain, The Midnight Hour. Jesus Christ. I'd say the person bought that up as soon as I made the podcast and was like, yeah, this is going to be huge someday. If El De Niro gets this podcast on iTunes, and I think he will, it will take 2 years, but damn it, he'll do it. He'll pay 10 fucking grand for the domain name. Another thing I wanted to say was that we are fast approaching the 3-year anniversary of the Midnight Hour podcast. I'm not sure specifically what weekend it went up, but I think it was next weekend. So I think next weekend's episode will be episode 80, and it will also be the 3-year anniversary. So that's pretty phenomenal and pretty amazing. And looking back at episode 1, which was an episode about guilty pleasures, seeing the comments on it and seeing that a lot of you guys are still hanging around just brings lots of warm feelings to my heart, and I'm very happy about that. So harking back to the older days, we're going to have a custom made intro for my amateur hour at the Sony Vegas soundbite editing thing, and then we're going to get into the episode, and I really hope that you guys enjoy it. If you have not done so already, please leave a like on YouTube and SoundCloud, because it's kind of, obviously audio platforms aren't very interactive in terms of the feedback that you get on it. So the only real way I have to know that you're listening are the statistics, and that's boring. So if you interact with it, like by leaving a like or a comment, then I know that you're there, and that's fun for me. And it feeds my ego, which again is the most important thing in the world. Anyway, play the intro, enjoy the episode, and I'll talk to you guys at the very end. Peace. I don't say peace like that. That's a Nepenthez thing, I think. Anyway, fuck this.
You, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear.
I, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear.
That you will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States,
and will, to the best of your ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
And I want to say this to the television audience. I made my mistakes. But in all of my years of public life, I have never profited from public service. I've earned every cent. And in all of my years of public life, I have never obstructed justice. And I think, too, that I could say that in my years of public life, that I welcome this kind of examination, because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
This is a wartime broadcasting service. This country has been attacked with nuclear weapons. Communications have been severely disrupted, and the number of casualties and the extent of the damage are not yet known.
And pretty soon, there'll be blood pouring out of people's heads like a crimson highway.
No power in the verse can stop me.
So, thanks for coming back on the show.
You're very welcome.
Today we're going to talk about actual conspiracies and false flags that are confirmed and things that have actually happened. So, no tinfoil hatty crazy stuff, just actual stuff with facts. Well, hopefully facts along the way. So just to start off, I guess I will give a very, very, very brief overview of the Watergate scandal, because it's probably the most major political scandal that has ever happened in the West. Would that be a crazy thing to say?
Definitely in like recent memory, like I'd say that's fair enough.
Yeah, post-slavery and stuff like that.
And post-World War II.
Yeah, so this happened in the 1970s after basically the American White House, led by Richard Nixon, who was pretty crazy. He was kind of a very paranoid man and just did not like anybody questioning him. He had a terrible record of, if anyone went against him, he would set the IRS on them, get them to audit them straight away, just cause all of this red tape, inflict red tape upon people and just make their lives a little bit more difficult, using his presidential power to do it. And basically it came up to the early 1970s when he was trying to go to be re-elected, and so he incited a break-in at the Democratic National Committee. Their headquarters was at the Watergate office complex in Washington, which is where the Watergate thing comes from. I actually thought it was something to do with a guy named Water, and they added gate to the end of it because every scandal gets gate added to the end of it. And I only found out that it was because of Watergate that people add gate to the end of every scandal. So, a couple of Nixon's cronies broke into the DNC headquarters, and they actually messed up the first time. They meant to plant wiretaps so that they could tap all the phones and figure everything out that the DNC were talking about and find out all of their information and everything. They actually messed it up, and they had to go and break in again. So they broke in to the DNC headquarters twice, and then what happened from there is probably the scandal itself. Well, that's what John thinks. I'm not sure. I don't really know. But Nixon went to outrageous lengths to cover his tracks and just continually just dug himself this huge hole. And it transpired that Nixon himself was a very, very paranoid man, and he recorded every single phone call that took place within the White House. And so he would listen to all of these calls and everything, and eventually what happened was information started getting leaked from Nixon's cabinet, and then he started to go a little bit more insane each time, and all of this stuff got leaked, and by the end of it he was impeached, though he actually resigned pending impeachment.
Before. Exactly.
But he famously exclaimed on multiple occasions that he was not a crook, and it turned out that he was in fact a crook. So,
one of the biggest crooks.
Yeah, one of the biggest crooks in the history of the White House. And it's so, when I was researching this scandal, which I'd recommend for all the listeners to go and do your own research on it, because it's really complex, and the reason that I'm not going too much into it, and the reason why I've given the most awful, watered down version of it is because it's just not exactly on the nose of the topic that we're talking about, but it does help to breed that sort of distrust of your government, that sort of feeling that you have. But also we're going to talk about some stuff that came to light as a result of the Watergate scandal and documents that got declassified and things like that. But yeah, when I was researching it, one of the things that really struck me was that I think the way that Nixon's government acted was sort of a really neat combination of both Trump and Hillary and the fears that people have for both of them. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
sort of like Hillary's carelessness and her tendency to lie for political gain, mixed with Trump's ego and narcissism and his tendency to lie about non-political things. You know what I mean?
Also, I think Trump has an amazing kind of delusion of grandeur and a feeling of omnipotence that he can nearly get anything done. And
exactly.
I guess it was that sentiment that sort of spurred Nixon on with the kind of self-belief and determination that he could basically remove himself from this insane scandal.
Nixon famously said, "It's not illegal if the president does it."
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, that's one of his famous quotes, and that was about a different matter, I think. But that's the sort of mentality he had, was the Machiavellian, the ends justify the means type thing, which will actually, just that sentiment alone will be pretty prevalent throughout this episode, I think, because it's the way that most governments tend to think when they do shady things, that it's always for the greater good. But yeah, the Watergate scandal is crazy. Do you have anything to say about it in particular?
Yeah, I think there's sort of a recent kind of corollary of the Watergate scandal, except, like, do you remember the WikiLeaks? Like,
yes.
That sort of thing in relation to Hillary, while it wasn't probably orchestrated by Trump, it was really kind of basically the exact same sort of thing directed at one political party to denigrate them and to bolster the campaign of the other. It just kind of transformed into something where there was sort of an intermediary between the two, Republican and Democrat, possibly from outside international forces.
Yeah.
But possibly as well, like colluding with like White House sources, or, you know what I mean, as well. So I just think that the WikiLeaks thing as well goes to show that there's still this sort of espionage tactics and strategists going on at the moment in kind of American politics.
Yeah, it's interesting the way that you don't see the Watergate scandal referred to as an example of whistleblowing culture or anything like that. It's never referred to as whistleblowing. It's always, obviously, one of the main leaks, one of the main informants in Watergate was a guy called Deep Throat, which obviously, haha, is a hilarious name, but it's quite a common term in espionage. It's your informant is referred to as your Deep Throat, like that's your.
So cool, yeah.
Yeah, the person that you've got on the inside. Do you remember Metal Gear Solid?
Oh, yeah. Frank Yeager.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I love Metal Gear Solid.
Snake was like, Deep Throat? The informant from the Watergate scandal? And then it was like, never mind about that.
Yeah.
God, I love that game.
I think it's the best game franchise of all time.
Yeah, without a doubt. But yeah, so the main guy, the main informant was called Deep Throat, and I learned that he used to communicate with the people who he was leaking the information to by writing a clock face, or drawing a clock face on page 20 of the local newspaper that day.
Wow.
Yeah, so I guess he turned up to the person's house and like switched papers or something like that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it implies that like the paper boy was in on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Watergate thing is crazy, and I think you guys should have a look into it yourselves. Now, one of the main reasons I wanted to mention the Watergate scandal was because there is a columnist. He's dead now, but his name was Jack Northman Anderson, who was basically just an American journalist, and he used to make lots of articles and columns about, I guess he was sort of lifting the lid on CIA plots, which we'll probably also mention later on in the episode, but particularly like their plot to assassinate Fidel Castro and their plot to reinstall their own government in Iran and stuff like that. And basically he was seen as like this huge thorn in the side of Nixon, And so Nixon decided to have him assassinated, and this is a fact. Like, Richard Nixon literally tried to have a journalist assassinated, and the only reason that they didn't get it done was because the so-called plumbers, they're called plumbers because they were hired by the White House to plug the leaks within the White House, G. Gordon Liddy and E. Howard Hunt, they were the guys that were going to go about assassinating Jack Anderson, and the only reason they didn't get it done was because they got arrested as a result of the Watergate break-in.
Yeah, it's mad.
It's crazy. Like, he literally tried to have a journalist assassinated because he didn't agree with what he said.
Yeah, one other motive I heard was that Jack Anderson, spilled the beans on Howard Hughes giving a loan to Richard Nixon's brother, and apparently that was kind of causal in Richard Nixon's 1960 election fail. And so he harbored a grudge from like 12 years ago and wanted him dead from then. And then in 1972 tried to get it orchestrated. And then, as you say, the people who he tried to do it with were implicated in the Watergate scandal. And so it all just kind of fell apart at the seams.
What's interesting is that Nixon used to always tweet that he was the failing Jack Anderson. But yeah, that is fucked up. I mean, can you just imagine that nowadays? Like, imagine Donald Trump trying to have a guy assassinated. I'm sure there'll be a lot of cynics will say, "Oh, I can imagine that." Like, genuinely, I don't think that he would do that at all.
But look at Putin, though. You know.
Yeah, that's true.
Jesus,
there's
many accounts.
Yeah. There's like if you look into the web that's springing out of do webs spring? What do webs do when they leave the body of the spider?
Yeah, I guess they're kind of just
spinning.
made.
The web that's spinning out of the
that's spun.
The web, the web that's slowly sprawling out of the Kremlin. The web that is woving out of the Kremlin. Just fucking Google Kremlin Putin murders and look at the blood that guy allegedly has on his alleged hands, because it's pretty allegedly disturbing.
Yeah, super disturbing.
He's like a mob boss. He's like Vito Corleone. It's crazy.
Yeah, I can't believe in a country as corrupt as Russia that he's kind of retained control and power for so long. Like, it just goes to show the lengths he goes to maintain it if he's never been ousted or challenged.
That's that political engineering that we talked about in the Could the Government Control Our Thoughts episode. It's the connections he has around him and the types of people he associates with that are on two completely different ideological planes, and yet they end up being used for the same goal. Like, he's such a genius puppet master.
Yeah.
You know, like, we think Trump is great at manipulating the media. Well, he is great at manipulating the media. Putin is like that with everything. It's crazy. But yeah, I guess that is actually a great parallel to the Nixon attempting to have a guy assassinated. Only Putin is a lot more suave and, you know, like, he has that sort of air of
invincibility. Yeah,
completely. Like, you'd never hear somebody imply that Putin is like a bumbling idiot like you would about an American president. It's so funny that, like, the so-called evil presidents that have, you know, the ones that get the most media scrutiny for their alleged evil deeds. I am talking like George W. in my lifetime, George W. Bush. But even the likes of Nixon and Trump too, they're constantly referred to as idiots rather than actual evil, like...
Exactly. Sure, like, just think of Michael Moore's book, Stupid White Men.
Yeah.
Like, international bestseller, like, centered around George W.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. There's something so exotic about a villain like Putin. It's just that he's...
Yeah, big time.
Yeah, he is like Don Vito Corleone of Russia, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, the assassination attempt, plot of Jack Anderson was something that really blew my mind. And, like, I mean, that is a conspiracy. That is a government conspiracy to assassinate somebody for political gain.
And a verified one.
Yeah. I don't think you can assassinate someone for non-political gain, can you? It's not assassination at that point anymore. It's just murder, isn't it?
I'm not sure, but I do know that it was actually Shakespeare who invented the word assassin.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Shakespeare is my homeboy.
Yeah, he is. I'm not sure what context he used it at its kind of inception, but yeah, can you assassinate someone not for political gain?
I don't think you can. I think the nature of assassination is that it's always for political gain. You never hear about a celebrity being assassinated, and I can't really think in our
What
society.
about Tupac?
Nah, Tupac got shot, murdered. I never hear anyone say Tupac got assassinated.
Yeah, but people talk about like the Illuminati and stuff.
I
I guess they'll be
suppose.
making it political when they're using it in that way.
Yeah. I suppose so, yeah. By the way, I guess I should tell all the listeners that we're doing a follow-up to this episode about theories and non-verified stuff, and that's going to be really fun. It's going to be opened by an hour of me talking about Alex Jones.
What a man.
Oh, I love him so much. So, should we talk about Project MKUltra?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So this is the CIA mind control program, which started in the 50s, I believe, and went all the way up to the 70s. And it was a incredibly illegal and immoral and, quite frankly, horrible program whereby the CIA induced drugs that had not even been, like, they used LSD on people, and they were trying to learn the effects of these chemicals to induce things like hypnosis and sensory deprivation, and they also promoted forms of sexual abuse and physical torture and psychological torture and stuff like that. They did so many illegal things, and a lot of it we don't even know about because there's only 20,000 pages that have been declassified under the Freedom of Information Act after the 70s. And the only reason we even know they're there is because they went through such lengths to hide the actual documents that they burned a load of them before Watergate, and then they filed loads of them across different things. So the 20,000 documents that they have were actually supposed to have been destroyed, but they were filed under some other stuff. So people actually stumbled across the MKUltra documents. They weren't public knowledge at all. It was just part of, this crazy plan that pretty much nobody knew about. But it's one of the craziest things. So they used all of these hallucinogenic drugs. And they were trying to, I guess the fear of communism in America was so strong that it's made intelligent people do absolutely insane things. But they were trying to test things like mind control. They were trying to breed a generation of super soldiers like the ones that you see in the Captain America movie. They were trying to create webs of invisibility and stuff like that. They were also just trying to come up with ways of dousing an entire city in LSD so that all the residents would go insane, and just huge forms of basically any military or strategic or power-based application for LSD that you can imagine, natural or supernatural. That's what they were attempting to explore.
Totally. And also just the vastness and the scope of the institutions that were implicated in it. It went from colleges and universities to hospitals to prisons and to big pharma companies. Like, all these were complicit within the framework of MKUltra. It's just insane, the scope of it.
They were being used in they funded under the MKUltra umbrella to universities who, I don't think the professors or scientists at the university specifically knew what it was for because there was a lot of secrecy around it. But they were given government funds that were created through all these shell companies and stuff that the government created themselves. And they were told, here, use this to do this test or whatever. But they funded 75 universities or something.
Wow.
How many fucking universities were there in America?
Back in the 1950s or whatever.
Yeah, that's that's more than one university in every state. The possibility of you being a person who was educated at any time between the 50s and 70s at an American university, the possibility that directly or indirectly a person involved in the MKUltra project is pretty damn high.
Yeah. But celebrities have also come out and kind of revealed that they were part of the MKUltra program.
Yeah.
like well-known celebrities. And I think there's a really good Stephen King book called Firestarter that kind of it's fictional, but it gives a really good insight as to kind of what the sort of setup was like and stuff based off of testimonies from actual patients or subjects.
Yeah, the Whitey Bulger from the movie Black Man. Well, that's not where he's from. He's from real life. He was serving a prison sentence in the 60s, and he was offered some time off his sentence if he participated in a US an LSD like test thing. So he did it, and he was given acid tablets every day for a long time, and he basically thought that his head was exploding, and it drove him to the point of madness. And like we all know what Whitey Bulger went on to do with his life, so you know.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in prison beforehand, but I wouldn't imagine that dropping multiple quantities of acid like helped
Yeah, no,
with his
exactly,
criminality.
exactly.
So yeah,
There's a really good cult classic film called Jacob's Ladder with Tim Robbins in it. I'd really recommend watching it. It's amazing, but it basically talks about like during the Vietnam War, the kind of potential abuse of soldiers to test out these sort of LSD-like drugs and in their kind of use in military conflicts.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating movie into like as an insight into the psychological turmoil and just life and death and all the rest. It's amazing.
It's also part of the plot of Stranger Things, the Netflix series.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, is that what is potentially happening?
Yeah, it pretty much is what's happening.
Okay.
Yeah, they reference MKUltra and they meet a victim of the MKUltra tests during and I don't want to spoil the revelation, but yeah.
How do you know the revelation?
It's in episode 6, I think.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah. Did you watch it all?
I've watched it all, and that was definitely like up there as a possible solution, but I didn't think it was a given.
Oh, I thought that it was pretty much confirmed that Elle was the daughter of that woman who was, brain dead from LSD.
Oh yeah, no, no, definitely, yeah, I think she was.
Yeah.
But I guess just the implications of everything. Like who were the monsters then, or what were the monsters?
Oh yeah, no, they were created separately, but it was sort of implied that her powers had come from the MKUltra project.
Ah, no, yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Basically, the Upside Down is a manifestation of her nightmares and stuff.
Okay,
or rather,
cool.
the Upside Down itself was a dimension that they create, or a dimension they found their way into from their own studies and tests and stuff. But the monsters it spawned were the manifestation of Elle's nightmares.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the new season.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. I love Winona Ryder and I love David Harbour. They're so good together, like just really good chemistry. But that kid not Will. The older one is terrible, whatever his name is.
Which one's the older?
Will's brother.
Oh yeah.
He's just an awful actor.
Yeah, he's kind of annoying.
Yeah.
One thing actually I was reading up on in relation to the MKUltra program that I thought was fascinating, just because I'm really interested in sort of neuroimaging of lying, which is kind of becoming more and more mainstream now, or at least like it's being talked about a lot more. They used to do this thing where they basically cannulate both your arms. So cannulate, like they'd stick kind of devices into both your arms, into both veins, and they'd inject barbiturates into one to put you asleep. But right before you went to sleep, they'd shoot your other arm full of amphetamines. And while you're kind of like feeling the hit of the up of amphetamines, they'd ask you all these questions. And apparently, like, they were able to get remarkable accuracy as like in relation to the truth of the confessions.
Wow.
Yeah, just but like IV barbiturates, which are kind of like depressors and downers, and then amphetamines, which are uppers. But they just like would kind of mix them in such a concoction that it was conducive to forming confessions.
I hope they don't. Yeah, that is really interesting though. I heard about that aspect of it, but not that it was I never heard any sort of results of their tests, if you know what I mean. Like, when I was researching it, I just found stuff that was really fucked up. There was one story I heard where they there was this guy, he was a doctor, and he would keep people in a vegetative state for like 3 months, basically, and just try and do tests on them while they were asleep and stuff. And there was another guy who was literally a convicted child molester, and they hired him to molest children that are on LSD.
Oh my god.
That is like a CIA conducted thing that they did. So like that is just absolutely mental. So,
and what was the point? Like, what?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
They did a lot of things related to sort of like sexual abuse.
So bizarre.
Absolutely no idea why. I can't even say that they did it to try and get to the bottom of like the brain of a person that abuses kids, because they actually did the tests and the abuse on the fucking kids. So I guess they were trying to figure out what happens to a person when they get abused, and the people that they used were just dummies or something, like to them.
Like, yeah, like they were looked at as less than human.
They went to in New York. They did a test on a guy who jumped out of a window and killed himself. So as a result of that, they were no longer allowed to do their tests in New York. So they just went to San Francisco and they dropped LSD in the pint glasses of all like tourists in San Francisco and stuff like that.
Jesus.
So like they literally just, it sounds like it got to a stage where people were like, yo, I wonder how many LSDs it'll take this person to think that they see monsters in all the cars and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's like that episode of The Simpsons.
Yeah, it
when
is.
All those hippies' plans make their way into the water supply.
Exactly, yeah.
Or they release the drinks. That's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. They're in the cans of juice that they make.
Yes, yeah.
But what was the other thing I was going to say that was really fucked up? Yeah, everybody in the CIA started dropping acid in their co-workers' drinks and stuff like that, and it became a genuine occupational hazard within the CIA during MKUltra.
Madness.
That people would be like tripping balls and not knowing that they're doing it. Like,
that's just insane.
Oh my god, it's just, this was like 30 years of, no, that's not right, 20 years of people, actual like trusted intelligence officers, like running amok with hallucinogens and just godlike power to give them to literally anybody. Like
historically, it seems like they had such a fixation and fascination with LSD, though, above all else. It seemed like that was just kind of, it just blew their minds, like literally and figuratively.
Yeah, America's relationship with drugs is the most like excruciating thing if you are an enthusiast or like in any way interested in drugs and the study of drugs. Like the fact that basically like no one is allowed to smoke weed in America. I mean, up to recently, obviously, but basically because everyone was allowed to do it, and then the Mexicans came in and started doing it, so the government was like, "Nah, we can't be doing that." The name marijuana comes from a government-led campaign to make weed seem like unclean and foreign. Like that's why they started calling it marijuana. So like they did all of that anyway. They got rid of it, and then like after they banned stuff like heroin and drugs like that, and LSD and coke and all of that, it was the CIA that was flying like industrial quantities of these drugs back into the country to put them on the market and sell them.
Exactly, because they were seeing how much money could be made.
Yeah.
The
whole cocaine wars of the 70s and 80s, basically it was the police who were largely responsible for all of that cocaine being there in the first place. It's so I listened to Alex Jones on Joe Rogan recently, and then I had to lie down for about 10 hours. But he spoke about the opium trade in Afghanistan and how much it's gone up since the American invasion. And it's like Afghanistan is responsible for like 93% of the world's opium production.
Exactly.
Oh man, the CIA have like the most fucked up record for...
Yeah, they're nefarious.
But have you seen the list of the countries that the CIA has overthrown the government in and installed their own government?
No.
You want me to read through it?
Yeah.
Alright. So in 1953, they overthrew the democratically elected Mohammed Mossadegh in a military coup in Iran. In 1954, they overthrew the democratically elected Jacob Arbenz in a military coup in Guatemala. In 1954, they did the same thing in North Vietnam with the communist government. In Hungary, they did it in 1956. They did it in Laos in 1957. Haiti, 1959. They attempted it with the famous Bay of Pigs invasion, which was also called Operation Mongoose, which was another false flag type thing where they tried to invade Castro's Cuba, which led to a false flag that we'll talk about very shortly. But yeah, so they tried to get to... I really love the way they could never get Cuba for some reason.
Yeah.
In 1961, the same year that they did the Bay of Pigs invasion, they assassinated the dictator of the Dominican Republic, who they supported and installed in the 30s, not the CIA, but the precursor to the CIA.
Yeah.
Then in this same year, they overthrew the democratically elected president of Ecuador, and they overthrew the democratically elected president of Congo, which at the time was Zaire. Then in 1963, they went back to the Dominican Republic and overthrew the guy that they put in 2 years previous.
Oh my God.
They went to Ecuador and overthrew their president. Then next year, they went to Brazil, overthrew their democratically elected president. In 1965, went to Indonesia, went to Dominican Republic, Greece, and Zaire, all in the same years, and installed new governments there. Then in 1967, they went back to Greece, and they didn't overthrow anyone in 1967, but they did play a huge part in a military coup overthrowing the government in Greece once again. In 1968, they did it in Bolivia, 1969 Uruguay, 1970 Cambodia, 1971 Bolivia and Haiti. And it goes on and on and on. Like,
that's insane.
In the years following it, they did Chile, Angola, like obviously Iran in the 70s and stuff like that, Afghanistan, Nicaragua. Like, honestly, they have been responsible for so many things in the world, and that's before like the American government basically created all of the instability in the Middle East and stuff like that, you know, throughout the 80s. Like, it's fucking crazy, like their influence on global politics and how understated it is.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things that led me to do this episode was that I am a skeptic, like a hardline skeptic. Like, too hardline of a skeptic, to be honest. I'm at a point where if someone questions 9/11, I immediately put them into the crazy bracket, and it's actually making me stupider and less enlightened as a person, and I need to stop doing it. But in light of this whole Hillary Trump thing, I've really had to reassess what I think a government is and how stable I think a government is and how sort of protected and vulnerable to scrutiny they deserve to be and stuff like that. So I wanted to make this episode to show people that I'm not a corporate shill.
Yeah, exactly.
Hillary, you know,
that you have been red pilled to some degree.
Yeah, perhaps. What I love about the term red pilling is that the Matrix is like an allegory for like gender dysphoria and stuff like that. And like generally people who talk about red pill philosophy, you'll find on the Reddit, the subreddit, you know, the red pill subreddit, and they are not particularly friendly to transgenders. So
interesting.
It's a little hint of irony, I suppose, in their philosophy that it was literally created by transgenders who were telling an important story which has several layers of transgender imagery and sort of hints and stuff like that. It's anyway. Yeah, like, I just want to show that, you know, government is fucked up, yo, and
big time.
The CIA are not above anything. As
well, it doesn't sound like
no, that's like such a brief thing I just read off too. Like, you know, you get to the Middle East and the stuff that they did, particularly in Iran. But even like America's influence in Syria and stuff like that. Like, you ever see those photos where it's like Afghanistan in 1950 whatever, and it's women walking around freely and stuff?
Oh, totally, yeah.
Like, a lot of that has to do with the fact that America picks a dictator and decides that they can be like, America installed Saddam Hussein, like, and Gaddafi in Libya and stuff like that.
Like, there's a really good kind of pair of images comparing the Iran women's volleyball team from the 1960s, I think, or 1970s versus the modern day, and it's completely changed. Like, they're far, far more conservative now. Like, they don't show off any skin.
Yeah.
And back in the day, like, Iran was like the France of, you know what I mean, like with the Paris and the like fashion of the Middle East.
Yeah.
Like, and then it just all changed, and basically stemming from the 70s.
Yeah.
From that, like, CIA intervention.
Yep. Pretty much.
It's crazy, like.
Yeah, it was the CIA who installed the Shah. What was his? You know, the Shah who like the Shah of Iran. I can't remember his name, but he famously like collapsed amid social pressure in the 70s.
Okay.
But he was the guy that was installed by the CIA, like, and he was a dictator whose police force were basically worse than the SS. They were like the SS on steroids. They were like the SS who had gone through the MKUltra project and become super SS guys. But yeah, it's just the CIA, man. They have so much blood on their hands, and we don't really think about it, because
like, where did they get the power and the leverage to carry all these things out?
That's the other thing, is that they do this. There's when you start getting into the real like InfoWars conspiracy false flag thing, there is a thing that's known as the deep state, and it's basically the far-reaching roots of the government that are not democratically elected and that are not voted in. It's usually within the military establishment, like leaders who they take over the CIA, and they can be in charge of that for like 25 years. And in a lot of cases, the president doesn't even know what's going on with the CIA, and the CIA operates in the shadows outside the jurisdiction of anybody.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is a result of what's called the deep state. There's a fairly substantial article about the Turkish deep state, which is pretty interesting. I remember reading it from the failed military coup that they had, and I was sort of wondering how that all happened. And basically, the Turkish deep state is a really deeply rooted state of sort of military control.
Was that a false flag?
No, it wasn't a false flag. No. Well, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that it was, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
But should we talk about the granddaddy of all false flag proposals?
Let's do it.
So this isn't something that actually happened, but this is something that very nearly happened, and it's called Operation Northwoods. And I've actually spoken about it on my channel before, although I'm pretty sure that Jack sort of took the lead on it, and there's really no harm in revising it here. So this was under JFK's presidenthood. What's
Presidency,
thank you. That's why I have a co-host on this show. Yeah, but JFK actually didn't know that this was happening, and when he found out about it, he completely restructured the CIA. But it was while
possibly why he was assassinated as well.
Yeah, that's a huge allegation, all right, that's been made. But Operation Northwoods was a plan by... I don't know, did this originate with the CIA? I don't actually think it did. I think this came from the Department of Defense.
Okay.
I think the Department of Defense and the Chief of Staff, or Joint Chiefs...
Would that have been J. Edgar Hoover?
Oh, no, it was a guy called Lehman Lemonitzer.
Okay.
Who had a lot of L's in his name. But he was the driving force behind it, and I don't know specifically what he was, but he was like either the chairman of the Department of Defense or he was the chairman of the CIA.
Yeah.
But it started out with the Department of Defense and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and they brought it to the CIA, and basically everyone went all in, balls to the wall, fuck Fidel Castro. We got to do this on this plan. And this was to create several false flag operations to bomb like many innocent people in Miami. They planned on hijacking planes and flying them into buildings, which sounds pretty familiar. They planned on... This is one of the most horrible parts of it for me, and I don't really know why, but there were people fleeing the Castro regime in boats. to emigrate to America, as Tony Montana famously did in real life when he started his cocaine empire in Miami. But they planned on bombing the fucking dinghies that they were coming across in.
I think it was to make Castro look like a monster.
Yeah, it absolutely was. Which is so funny, because it's like you don't even need to make him look like a monster. I mean, me and Justin Trudeau and Michael D. Higgins disagree on this point, because I don't think he was that great of a guy.
Yeah, no, I don't think he was that great either.
But the lengths that the US went to discredit him, like if you want to Google the timeline of CIA attempted coups and CIA installation of governments and stuff like that, you will see how far they went to attempt to overthrow Castro, and it amazes me that they couldn't do it. Like, it comes to me as no surprise that Castro is held as this sort of symbol of like rebellion and sort of anti-establishment and stuff like that. For his ability to stand up to America and just not succumb to all of their dirty tricks, like it's
and like a poor communist country.
It's great with great healthcare.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, this plan was like a full scale, like, surely this stops becoming a false flag and becomes a civil war at this point. Like, it was basically gonna be like there's just so many bombings and like planting of fake evidence and all of this stuff to try and implicate the Cuban regime so that they could go in and overthrow it. Should probably establish for people listening that a false flag operation is when the military of a country, it's usually military. I mean, it can stem from government, but it's basically that they want to gain public approval towards a certain thing, like a political maneuver, and so they commit an atrocity within their own borders on their own citizens and plant a false flag, as in the flag of another country, and say they did it. I mean, they don't physically plant the flag on the ground. That's not how war works. They come out, they plant a Jolly Roger on the ground. And, look, pirates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it had to be them. It's their flag.
Yeah.
So basically the perpetrator is yourself against your own people, but you kind of make it appear that it was someone or something else.
Yeah, it's basically it's become a calling card for gun nuts to say about every school shooting in America that it's Obama trying to take away their guns and you know, holograms and stuff like that. But the fact is that false flags are real and they have been planted in the past, and we are going to discuss false flags that actually were committed, as opposed to Operation Northwoods, which thankfully was nipped in the bud by JFK when he found out about it. I just love the idea of all the military officials in all the different branches of military establishments that they have in America, like all the different wings coming together and being like, oh, this is absolutely, this makes sense. And then JFK seeing it and going, what? No!
Yeah.
Of course not.
No. Yeah.
Get out of my office.
Exactly, yeah. Just ripping it up and just throwing it at them.
Yeah, just being baffled as to how...
And telling them he's got a plane to catch to Texas. He hopes to see them when he comes back.
Oh, no. Oh, my God. Did you know, by the way, speaking of conspiracies, this is a big one. The show Dallas was created as part of a movement by, like, the government of Texas to re-establish Dallas's place as a household name after the JFK assassination.
Oh, wow.
And the whole thing, I Shot JR, was to try and take away from the fact that people associate Dallas shooting JFK, but people could be like, no, shooting JR in Dallas. That's
oh my God.
That is genuinely 100% the truth.
That's so ridiculous.
It's also a conspiracy. It's literally a conspiracy.
That's amazing. I watched that movie with Natalie Portman there recently, Jackie.
Oh, yeah.
So good. Really worth watching.
Yeah, I know two people who saw it and said it was rubbish, but they were people whose opinions usually mean the opposite for me.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was quite slow, but it was very dramatic and just sort of, I thought Natalie Portman was her incredible self, as usual.
She's a goddess.
She's actually a goddess. Like,
she's an incredible woman.
She's out of this world. And
she gave birth to Luke and Leia Skywalker, so
yeah.
Let's give it up for Queen Amidala.
And she put Jabba the Hutt up for adoption.
Yeah. Well, is that what she did? I mean, she... Yeah, actually, you're right. That's good. Okay. Podcasting. It's so easy, kids.
Yeah, actually, one interesting fact about her in Star Wars, was it episode, don't tell me, was it episode 1?
She was in the first 3. Well, 1, 2, and 3, not the first 3.
She missed the premiere of the first one because she had a high school exam the next day.
Oh my god.
She's the dream.
She's just an incredible... She went to Harvard as well.
She studied psychology, yeah.
Oh my god.
And now she's actually married to her ballet choreographer from Black Swan.
Oh, no way.
That's the guy who is the father to her child and her loving husband, yeah.
Spoken like a man who truly has a picture of him on his dartboard.
Of course. Natalie Portman will forever be bae.
Yeah, true. She'll never dethrone Beyonce for me.
What?
Someone asked me in work today.
Adele is already dethroned.
So someone asked me in work today, what do you think about Adele giving half her award to Beyonce? And I was like, she should have given her the whole fucking award. Everyone should give all the awards to Beyonce. When someone wins an Oscar, give it to Beyonce.
Yeah.
Don't even make Kanye get up on that stage and tell you where to...
That's something we definitely disagree on, but I love your enthusiasm.
Yeah. I mean, that's fine. You're allowed to disagree. You're just not allowed to ever tell me that you disagree. So do you have anything else to add about Northwoods apart from WTF, bro?
I just think, like, if you kind of think about 9/11, as you alluded to earlier, in the context of Operation Northwoods being a near certain possibility, like, I think it kind of adds a little bit of weight to the idea that 9/11 could be an inside job. Like, obviously it doesn't prove anything, but it does go to prove the lengths that the US will go to to carry out its ideological war or whatever.
This is really good priming for the next episode, for the actual conspiracy theory one. Like, we're really teasing people now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. It just goes to show that they're not above any of this. Like, you know, government doesn't mean anything. They're still humans who get so fucking offended by journalism that they try to assassinate them, or like so scared of communism that they try to assassinate their own people for political gain. Like, they're humans, you know, and humans are not above this kind of bullshit at all. Like, we are the worst when it comes to stuff like this. So. Exactly,
because we know the ramifications of what we're doing, and we know there are a lot more moral alternatives, yet we decide to go against them.
It's ultimately the belief that the good that you're doing in the long run, you know, outweighs all of the bad that you're doing now. It's the Machiavelli, the ends justify the means ideology. Which, by the way, The Prince, the Machiavelli book, was apparently a work of satire, and he was taking the piss out of all the dictators in the world at the time.
Interesting.
Yeah, I only found that out like a year ago. I read it. I don't know if it's actually been confirmed, but I know that a really respected historian has at least hypothesized it. But it may well have since been confirmed. But
like Voltaire's Candide was kind of a very sarcastic, tongue-in-cheek attack at that time as well. Like I think. Like those sorts of authors were very kind of well acquainted with like satire and making fun of things but not being open about it, and
that's what I find really funny about like our culture now, and the way that, you know how was it Kellyanne Conway who said about the Bowling Green massacre?
Oh yeah.
And so a bunch of people are like out there like having a fucking candlelit vigil for the
I know.
Right? And so people did the same thing for Harambe. And I kind of think we've gotten to a point in culture where irony is actually the new stupidity. Like, it's like, I cannot be bothered to even fathom an actual... Or like, I cannot even attempt to summon a real opinion or a real feeling or a real semblance of anything other than... Dude, Harambe, lol. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Harambe was the first instance where people were like, all right, look, people get outraged over everything. We need to embody that in order to make fun of it. And now people are getting outraged over fake things. And, like, it's not real outrage, sure, but it's real energy that they're dedicating to it. You know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
It's sort of interesting. I think there's something in that. I would love to see a psychological breakdown of the people that are attending the Bowling Green and Harambe candlelit vigils.
Yeah.
Versus, like, paralleled with, like, political things, or even just things in the world that they actually care about. You know what I mean? Like, I have a feeling that the same people going to those candlelit vigils are the same people who are like, man, Paul Walker was the best actor of all time, can't believe he's you know what I mean? Like, that kind of fucking person.
It must have been an inside job. Yeah, he knew too much.
Yeah.
To this day, my favorite Harambe meme actually came out at Halloween. It was basically a picture of Harambe and then a big bowl of sweets, and it said, "Take one for Harambe. He took one for you." It's just brilliant. Yeah, so many great memes.
I saw one of it was like making fun of like the left and the crazy part of the left, and it was like someone photoshopped Donald Trump into the zoo, and it showed like a transcript and it looked so legitimate too. It was like a transcript of Trump saying, like, throw a child into the enclosure. I want to see what happens.
Oh, that is a
like,
dank meme.
Proof that Donald Trump is the devil.
Or like, did you ever see that one with Harambe and the kid is there and he's like, "Okay, kid, I don't have much time, but Hillary Clinton," and then like it just ends.
Yeah. It's so good. Oh God, what a world.
I know.
I'm so happy to be alive in this time.
I know. Like, memes are just all that matter.
I know, they really are, though. Like, they actually sway people. Like, the Pepe thing, the Pepe frog meme, has, like, literally united people towards something. Like,
I know.
It's taken all the, like, those disenfranchised and angry people who can't specifically put their finger on what they're angry at. They just literally follow the meme.
I know.
Then they end up in the...
Are you following Sargon of Akkad and Kekistan?
No, I know them, though.
He's after inventing a country for Pepe the Frog.
Oh, excellent.
It's called Kekistan. It's hilarious.
Oh,
and like every second tweet is basically like the fight for the freedom of Kekistan and the oppression of Kekistan. It's just amazing.
And it's obviously Kek as in K-E-K, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
He was banned for a while, wasn't he?
He was. He lost all his followers.
Because he tweeted gay porn, wasn't it?
Yeah, he goes on these weird gay porn rants. It's hilarious.
Well, that's fair, you know.
Yeah.
You got to look out at the important stuff.
Exactly.
Interesting thing. Somebody else was banned from Twitter recently for... Oh, who was it? It was a guy from a band I actually really like as well.
Was it... Yeah, I don't know, sorry.
Great input, yes. That is who it was. It was a guy who was trying to show people how to correctly punch a Nazi, and he got banned on Twitter.
Jesus.
So I think that's a good little answer to, that Twitter are not only banning right people on the right.
Yeah, I just think it's so weird that the dictionary definition of Nazi has now taken to mean basically anyone I don't agree with.
Yeah, no, I cannot deal with the Trump comparisons to Hitler thing.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
I've been saying it for a long time.
Yeah, it just delegitimizes like the horrible impact Hitler had.
And also, the thing is, when we're faced with actual Hitler again, we're not going to know that it's Hitler because we've called everything Hitler up to this point. You know what I mean?
I wonder, is there like an opposite to the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis in that if you use a word too much? So, like, obviously, the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis suggests that if you take a word away, you lose the concept of it. But I wonder, is there kind of a correlate of that where if you use a word too much, you diminish and dilute the impact of the idea?
Yes. And here is one word that will pretty much prove what you're trying to say. Literally.
Oh, yeah.
We don't have a context anymore for the literal meaning of the word literally. Because we say it when we mean virtually. So we no longer have a word that means I am speaking completely factually here, and all of the things I'm saying are absolutely correct.
Yes, yeah,
to my
factually correct.
Yeah. So we don't have that anymore because literally, it was literally,
Like I literally died of shock.
yeah.
Yeah.
You know Hannibal, the comedian.
I didn't think he was that funny now.
No, I don't really. Oh, I see what you did. Hannibal, what's Hannibal Burgess? Something like that. Okay. I don't really like his jokes that much, but he did tell a really funny one time that I was watching. That's the worst build up to a story I've ever told. But he was like, yeah, I was in Scotland and I was in England, and people always ask me back home, what's the difference between Scotland and England? Well, in Scotland they say no, and in England they say literally. So yeah, I think we've strayed sufficiently off topic. Anyway, false flags. So Harambe. So shall we talk about actual false flags that happened?
Yeah, let's do it. Like the 32 County Ireland flag.
Yes. 26 plus 6 equals 1. Up the rabbit.
You Chucky Orlaw.
Yeah, Jesus. I was trying to think earlier of false flags that may have happened in Ireland or between, because obviously, and this may shock some people, but we have a strained past relationship with the Brits, or as we call them across the water. It's so good having another Irish person on the show, by the way, because when I'm surrounded by too many English people, I get patriotic, and I'm not a patriotic person. I couldn't give a fuck where I'm from.
And do you go back to your cupboard and make sure all your potatoes are still there?
Yes, every single time.
That's something. If I was surrounded by English people too long, I'd always be a bit suspicious that I was losing potatoes.
I always whenever I'm in England and they make a potato joke, I always have to make sure that they know that the British government used the famine to attempt genocide on the Irish people. I have to always be they knew that the famine was coming because it had affected Scotland and even parts of North America and stuff that, don't you? Yeah, they shipped all the corn out of Ireland so that the Irish had no other food, and then they forced them to work on all these roads that weren't even going anywhere, and then they fed them blighted potato. That happened though, don't you? And my English friends are like, dude, you're such a dick. Why are you doing all of this to me? But one false flag that the Brits did actually plant in recent history, this really surprised me. I found this out today. Between 1946 and 1948, which were notoriously tumultuous years in global politics. So there were boats or ships. Don't know what the difference between a boat and a ship. Oh, Jack, who used to co-host this show, once told me, right? The difference between a ship and a boat is that you can put a boat on a ship, but you can't put a ship on a boat.
What about a friendship?
That's not a ship, though. You can't just put an apostrophe in front of it and say, hey, dog, we have a sick ship, yo. Anyone who calls a friendship a ship, it's the nerdiest thing. You have to come up with a slang word for your friendship.
Yeah.
That's
this
so
ship's
sad.
been through a lot, yo. Many a storm.
Oh my god. This ship been sailing on rough seas for time. Why is it always black guys saying it? I don't even know.
And why are you using ebonics as well? This ship been, dog.
Damn, cuz.
Get back in and eat your cornbread and... Yeah.
Can you imagine, we're both two of the whitest Irish people. I'm
an albino.
We're so Irish, when we talk. We don't even have that sort of rough Dublin Conor McGregor accent to fall back on. We're
Sadly.
Literally, to people listening, we are fiddly-dee potato Hollywood Irishmen. We're here speaking in ebonics and laughing so hard. Okay, so...
Alright, let's pull it back.
This is really sad as well, what I'm about to say, and it literally broke my heart when I read it. And No, I can't get the idea of a white guy with a backwards baseball cap talking to his best friend about their ship, yo. Okay. Right, so
Oh my god, it's the LSD in the water.
my stomach is so sore. Fuck. Oh, we need to take a commercial break. Oh, we need to take a break.
Holy shit.
I can't. I need to take a break.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
I need to take my jumper off. One sec.
Oh my god.
I literally just laughed till I sweat.
It's time for forgiveness, and it's time for relief. It's time that we've wasted, so it's time to believe, and it's time for decisions.
What's going on, guys? Obviously that was not an intended interlude, but what are you gonna do? We have an interlude. The song is Weight of the World. It's a demo by Our Lady Peace. It's not a particularly amazing song, but they're a great band and I really like them. I hope you guys are enjoying the podcast so far. Like I said, a little bit of a light take on a relatively serious topic, but I can't explain that, fit of laughter right there. But I guess this is a good opportunity to let you know that I have merch, and the link is in the description. So if you want to buy a t-shirt or a hoodie or a phone case or a fire extinguisher, we don't have fire extinguishers. I should work on getting those. But a mug, duvet covers, whatever. It's all there in the description. Enjoy the rest of the song and the rest of the episode. I'll talk to you guys at the end.
Time that we borrow, and it's time that we breathe, and it's time that we're taking, and it's time that everybody needs. There's a warning up ahead, the alarm's gone off again, and the sun will fill the sky, fill the sky, yeah. Street fight, but nobody wins, and it's your life, and it's time that you live it. Don't carry the weight of the world. Street fight, but nobody wins, and it's time.
Oh,
And we're back.
Baby deaths and stuff. Okay. The British government admits that between 1946 and 1948, they bombed 5 ships carrying Jews attempting to flee the Holocaust and seek safety in Palestine. Right? Which is just fucking great. They killed a bunch of innocent Jews. Like, they were on the side of the Allies and they killed the Jews. And the crazy thing about it is that I don't even think they did it to point out how horrible the Nazis are, because they set up a fake terrorist group called Defenders of Arab Palestine. Like, they basically, like, through their own Islamophobia, were like, I bet you the Arab Palestinians aren't going to like this. Let's show the people how much they're not going to like it by, carrying out their alleged work for them. So, that is, like, absolutely crazy. I don't know how that knowledge hasn't tainted Britain's perception of their, heroics during World War II, because it's been, like, it's widely asserted, it's a fact that Russia, they, A, lost more people to the Nazis, and B, they killed more Nazis than any other country. They killed more Nazis than everybody in World War II combined.
Really?
Russia killed 80% of the Nazis in World War II at a conservative estimate. Other estimates place it at 90%.
But that's really interesting, because Hitler only turned his attention to Stalin and the East quite late on in the campaign, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wow.
But the common wisdom is that, Hitler didn't know how weather worked and they lost because of the winter. Like, no. They knew what they were doing. Like, they went in there at a harsh time, but they were well prepared for it, well briefed for it. They had done years of reconnaissance on Russia. Like, the reason that Hitler had played Stalin as an ally for so long, well, was partially so that he could, gain as much information as he could and stuff like that before he made his move. But Hitler sending his troops in there was not an idiotic decision in terms of whether, it was an idiotic decision because he couldn't possibly have foreseen the fact that the Red Army were a bunch of fucking demons and that they would literally eat the Germans,
There were probably more Red Army soldiers than the Germans had bullets. Like, let's be honest. Even if every German shot was a headshot, I still don't think they would have won.
No, and even when the Red Army ran out of bullets, that didn't fucking stop them. Like, they threw themselves at the Nazis. The Battle of Stalingrad, deserves a Hollywood blockbuster movie.
Oh my god, yeah, big time.
And it's a crime that we haven't gotten one, to be honest, because it's probably the most fascinating, battle imaginable. Yeah. Certainly in recent memory. I mean, I really like the reading and listening to stuff about the World War I battles that they had, because they were really brutal.
Yeah, they were up close, mano a mano.
Yeah. They turned into meat grinders from just flesh clanging together and stuff.
Exactly. They'd pick up a shovel or whatever, and that would be their weapon for the next 24 hours until they. Yeah.
But this thing about the British government, creating a pseudo terror group and bombing the Jews,
so weird.
That is absolutely insane. And that's literally true. That's proven. That's publicly available information.
So weird.
It's fucking disgusting.
Yeah, but it's what they say though is history is written by the victors.
Yeah. And that's so true.
But especially when you look at the Nuremberg trials post World War II, and how while the Germans were absolutely horrible, the Russians were just as bad.
Yep.
Yet there were no Russians up facing whatever, trial and execution.
Yeah, that's true.
It's madness,
Interestingly, the Nuremberg trials revealed several false flag operations that the Nazis had committed on their own people. Which they blamed on Poland before they started their first invasion. So
okay,
that was pretty interesting too.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about some?
Well, the only one I've heard of is the Reichstag fire.
Yes, yeah. That was a big one.
Yeah, which was basically a way for kind of Hitler to develop public kind of anger towards kind of communists. And stated that basically this guy, Van der Loop, who was a young Dutch council communist, that he'd been caught at the scene of the fire, and it was some governmental building that he was apparently after burning down.
It was the Parliament, the Houses of Parliament in Germany.
Yes, the House of Parliament, exactly, yeah. And he had just immigrated from... Well, yeah, he was Dutch, was he? So that's where he came. Yeah, he came straight from the Netherlands.
I think so.
Yeah. And yes, basically he was used as a scapegoat to kind of rouse public support.
It's an scapegoat technically, but yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's a thing that's entered the language. People say scapegoat now instead of scapegoat.
Oh, a scapegoat?
No, people say an scapegoat, E.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's literally wrong.
Yeah, it's literally wrong.
But
apparently, scapegoats actually used to be goats.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so the word was actually originated in biblical times when, if, say, for instance, a village's farm wouldn't yield crop, or some of the women were barren, so to speak, they'd basically get a goat and have some shaman throw all the misfortunes onto this goat and kick it out of the village.
That is so harsh.
And that would be the scapegoat that would then get rid of all their misfortune and all their bad karma.
Can you imagine a little goat walking out of a village?
Although in fairness, a Middle Eastern village goat probably has a better time by himself than, than tied up to a tree.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, getting taught religion, huh?
They'd fill him right up.
Jesus. Is that a thing?
Oh yeah. Sure, there's that meme, isn't there, of that guy from the Middle East in bed, oh, I can't sleep, let me count sheep. And then you just see him counting sheep, and the next picture is him with a boner.
It's so funny the way we ascribe that. I was about to say taboo. It's not a taboo. It's literally a crime. But the idea of like all people in the mountains, like they all have sex with sheep, as do like the Welsh and stuff. Like
exactly. I was just going to bring up the Welsh as well, as people who are a bit closer to home.
It's so. I would really love to explore what it is that makes like 21st century men and women. Although in fairness, it's usually men that do this, I think. But say I live in Swords in a place called River Valley, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and across the valley is a place called the Manor. And so because I'm from River Valley and we're separated by the valley, I am legally obligated to hate everyone that lives in the Manor. And like it's so weird.
Yeah, it's so arbitrary.
It's like this mirror estate that's actually a lot nicer than River Valley.
Do you think?
Yeah, I used to live in the Manor and it was fantastic. River Valley is like the ghetto of Swords. I mean, it's decrepit and falling apart, and all the box rooms have mold, and you know. But yeah, I'd love to know what it is that makes us hate people who are in any way, shape or form different to us, even if they are literally the exact same but they live 5 minutes away.
Yeah, it's in-group, out-group social psychology. It's fascinating.
Yeah, I want to know why. I want to know who to read on it. I've Googled. I've done Google searches on this. Like, I listen to lots of audiobooks and stuff, so it's not beyond me to actually do the research that I'm saying I wish I would do.
You're awaiting government funding.
Yeah. I'm awaiting an extra credit to be added to my Audible thing, you know. Hopefully they'll sponsor the podcast someday and just fucking give me some credits for free.
Nice, yeah.
But
because it's auto bullshit if they don't.
Hey man, that's auto order.
Oh my god, you gotta me there. Shit, no, damn. Yeah, let's just keep going.
That's all we have time for this week, folks.
Yeah. On puns galore.
But yeah, I want to know who to read. If any enlightened listener out there can point me in the right direction to learn about tribalism, I'm very interested, because the only one that I did actually find was a book on tribalism that was endorsed by the Huffington Post, which is, you know, as useful as somebody coughing blood onto a book and telling me to read it. So
yeah.
The British government also admitted that they colluded with America in the 50s to plan out some attacks in Syria and blame it on the Syrian government so that they could, surprise, surprise, install their own leader in that country. So, yeah, the British government not above this type of thing either.
And also, like, you know, Harrow Downhill?
No.
Yeah, Harrow Downhill was like kind of that thing around the time of the Iraq War and the Tony Blair administration. You never heard of Harrow Downhill?
No.
Yeah, so Tom York released a song actually called Harrow Downhill, and basically, I think the essence of it is that, like, you know, kind of weapons of mass destruction. Do they have weapons of mass destruction? Don't they? What's our intelligence? And basically then they killed off some prominent politician.
Who did? The British government?
The British government, quite recently. The name, I'm missing it here. If you have Googled there, Google Harrow Downhill.
Harrow Downhill is a song written by Radiohead frontman Tom York.
But, like, the illusion, though, is that it's about an actual guy who was bumped off. And, like, it was made to look like a suicide when it wasn't.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
Did you hear, like, maybe 5 years ago or so, there was like an MI6 operative. He may have been MI5. Don't know what the difference between those two organizations is apart from the number. But he was found dead inside of a suitcase, and it was ruled as a fucking suicide, or like death by misadventure. Like they alleged that he locked himself inside of the suitcase.
That's so ridiculous.
And died somehow. Like, he didn't die of starvation or anything like that.
Yeah.
Come on. Like,
yeah,
some things just require a suspension of disbelief. I can get behind the idea that Vin Diesel can crash his car right into Jason Statham's car, and then they can get out and still be in fit enough condition to fight and stuff. Like, that's all in the name of entertainment. I can get behind that. I cannot accept a man falling into a suitcase, accidentally sealing it shut, and then dying of natural causes while inside.
But also, he was probably like a well-built guy. Like, what strong man can't get out of a suitcase?
I know, yeah.
Like,
I mean, all you have to
seriously.
do is like just put your nails under the fucking the zip
Exactly.
thing. Like, even if your nails aren't long enough, I mean, if you're in there, you know,
Like, you just kick your legs out.
yeah, Jesus.
Like, it's unless you're no, like that's absolutely absurd.
I always found the notion of killing someone and putting their body into a suitcase to be insane, because it's like surely you've got to break some limbs to put a person into a suitcase. Have you ever tried to get into a suitcase? It's fucking hard, yo. Like, they're not that big. Like,
yeah, no, I haven't. Yeah, usually they have to chop them up, don't they?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember what they did with the dentist in the TV show Love Hate, but they definitely put him in a suitcase and then put him into the canal. So,
Yeah,
I mean, that's gotta suck.
yeah.
Yeah, so the German government admitted that in 1978, the German Secret Service detonated a bomb in the outer wall of a prison and planted escape tools on a prisoner who was a member of the Red Army faction, and they wanted to frame the bombing on him.
Wow.
That's, I suppose, the result of Germany and Russia's ideological war that has continued to this very day. But Red Army prisoners in the 70s getting false flag operationed, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
I love reading about the fear of communism and how,
Yeah.
like, I really feel like in the cultural canon we failed to actually warn people the dangers of communism.
Yeah.
And I think it's because of the fear of it. Or
Yeah,
rather,
people are scared that, if you talk about it at all, that it'll catch on.
Yeah. I wonder that that's not a great precursor to what's happening now in the world. People just being too afraid to talk about Islam.
Anything.
And
Yes.
like the correlation between Islam and terrorism. Like,
Exactly.
Because in the 80s, like late 60s, 70s, and 80s, the word terrorist was synonymous with the word Irish Catholic.
Yeah.
And like it is a fact that destabilizing a government, starving a people of whatever it may be that they perceive to be a basic right, like these things breed terrorism. That's a fact all throughout history. Look at it anywhere. Like, we live in Ireland, so it's very easy for us to know full well what can breed terrorism. I mean, all the fucking instability in the Middle East obviously plays a huge part in the reason why there are so many terrorists today. Because for a long time there, Islam coexisted with some form of democracy. Not in every place in the Middle East, but certainly in some countries, or certainly in predominantly Muslim countries that did not have, we'll say secular Muslim countries.
Exactly.
Did not have a church-state relationship. And so I really think that, I mean, the CIA installing the Shah of Iran, like that straight away, he turned it into a religious state. Where people were,
theocracy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happened as a result of the CIA. So, like, you know, terrorists and everything that's happening in Iran's, like, current sphere is pretty much a result of American, like, I mean, sure, it was a long time ago or whatever, but the Gulf War was only, like, 27 years ago. Like, I think it's repeated interference from America, just repeated fucking using the Middle East as a experiment of sorts to just be like, we want this guy in charge so we can control this. Oh, that's not going to work. We need to get rid of him. Let's fund these people to go against him, and now let's put this guy in charge. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just keep fucking with people like that.
Exactly. And regimes.
Yeah. Like, it's just like that's what happens when you do that. As like, I guess the point of this episode, like, the one thing I'd like people to take home is that, like, government doesn't mean shit, really. And, like, your opinion, like, your whatever opinions, like, if you don't consider yourself to be, like, a political person or whatever, like, keep an eye on what the government is saying and try and find a way that it will represent you. Like, it's important to vote. It's important to do these things and pay attention. Like, it's not good to be out of the loop with stuff like this, especially now when pretty much everything is political on some level or another. Like, We can't continue doing these things, like turning the Grammys into a proxy war about racism and stuff like that. Like, it's so fucking tiring. Like,
Yeah.
we just need to have these discussions out in the open and just...
Exactly, yeah. Sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Yeah. Apart from false flags.
Yeah.
Well, false flags is the best medicine, isn't that what they say?
Oh, yeah.
It's a famous...
A flag a day keeps the doctor away.
Yeah, that's correct. Do you want to run through that list of false flags just to quickly read out a few that people might not be aware of that they might find fascinating?
I don't think I have the list.
I linked it to you just before.
Oh, right, sorry, yeah.
I can talk about one that goes back to the Russia-Germany connection. And in the 40s, Joseph Stalin ordered his secret service to go into Poland and execute 22,000 Polish army officers and blame it on the Nazis.
Jesus.
Isn't it so weird, right? That Poland, like, poor Poland has done nothing here, right? They're like, Poland is just in the middle being Poland, and they're like, hi, we're Poland. And the Nazis are killing their own people and saying it's Poland. And the Russians are killing the Polish and saying it's the Nazis. And Poland is like, why can't we just be Poland?
Yeah, no, Poland's had it so hard throughout, like, especially the 20th century. Like, God love them. Like, but they're such a strong people. That's why I have such respect for them. And for Poland.
I always bond so well with every single Polish person that I meet.
Like,
it's actually crazy how, like, if ever I'm out and I meet a Polish person, I remember one time I was when I was living in Glasgow, I got in like a kind of a light scuffle with a Polish person, and he found out that I was Irish, and all of a sudden we were best friends.
Yeah.
And like, he bought me a drink and everything, and like came up to me at the end of the night and was like, dude, I'm really sorry about that. I don't know what I was thinking and stuff. I don't know. It's really good to be Irish sometimes, though. we have it so good when we go abroad. Everybody.
Oh, internationally, yeah. Everybody.
It's funny because, like, we're guilty of so many of the same things that British people are, but whenever people see Irish people doing stupid things, they're like, oh, those fucking English. And whenever people see English people doing stupid things, they're like, oh, those fucking English. And whenever they see Irish people, they're like, I love Irish people.
Exactly, yeah. It's so nice, yeah, it's a great reputation.
Yeah, we've got it so good.
Yeah, we do. Okay, so here's a good one. So, a major with the Nazi secret service admitted at the Nuremberg trials that under orders from the chief of the Gestapo, so like kind of the secret police, he and some other Nazi operatives faked attacks on their own people and resources, which they blamed on the Poles, to justify the invasion of Poland. Yeah. So basically, a false flag precipitated World War II. Like, that's essentially how World War II began, was the invasion of Poland.
Yeah, that's what, like, everybody knows that the moment World War II started was when Hitler marched into Poland. And it's, like, for fucking complete bullshit reasons.
Yeah.
And, like, the funny thing is, like, we know it's bullshit reasons anyway, the reason that he went into Poland. But the fact that they had to set it up in that way, like, that's another thing, too, that I'd really like people to take away, is that when we think of Germany and, you know, the fact that Hitler was democratically elected and stuff, we always think, what were those people thinking? How could they not see? This is how they couldn't see.
Yeah.
Like, they're looking through a haze of smoke and mirrors, like, to try and get to the truth. Like, between that, the propaganda, the lack of the internet, like, you know, Nazi Germany or the precursor to Nazi Germany would have felt like the most natural thing to people.
Yeah.
Like Nazi skepticism was definitely a thing, but the reason that it wasn't a thing to the extent that it stopped the Nazis was because, like, false flags, propaganda, like, all of these things, and also, like, demagoguery and appeals to emotion and stuff like that.
Exactly.
But, it's crazy to think that that's the way you just shape a people towards you achieving your goal, like, as a politician. Like, isn't that what it's always about? It's like that sort of ego, like, combined with just a perceived God-given right to do this thing because it's under the color of, you know, the correct thing to do.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's totally crazy.
Is that all we got?
Just trying to see now. Just one thing about kind of was interesting. in relation to Fidel Castro, the US Department of Defense suggested covertly paying a person in the Castro government to attack the United States. The only area remaining for consideration then would be to bribe one of Castro's subordinate commanders to initiate an attack on Guantanamo. So to like pay one of Castro's commanders to attack Guantanamo. Like that's how little clue they had as to like how to get it going.
If America at that time had any fucking like self-control or like ability to perceive themselves, like, I mean, they've literally written the narrative for people like Justin Trudeau and people like Jeremy Corbyn and people like Michael D. Higgins to like see Castro as the little guy here. Like, he truly is the bully victim of this story.
Exactly.
Like, he
it's
actually
so ridiculous.
is.
He
like,
is. He's the underdog.
Yeah. Like, America have just gone out of their way to fucking bully him and, like, do everything that they possibly can to just act like dicks. And, like, the thing about it is that I don't even think it was... It had nothing to do with... freeing the people of Cuba. It just had to do with the fear of communism.
It was ideological. And there's actually a lot of reason to suggest that it was the ideological aspect of Hitler's war in World War II that cost him it. It wasn't so much anything else other than like kind of like basically the Jews invented the atomic bomb. Imagine if instead of killing them, he actually just turned them into his world, like the best scientists in the world. And imagine if Hitler got hold of the atomic bomb before anyone else.
Yeah, fuck.
Yeah.
That's a scary thought. Did you know, by the way, that Hitler had a doctor, like a personal doctor, who prescribed him like an infant version of MDMA?
Okay.
No, sorry, it wasn't MDMA, it was meth. He was constantly prescribed crystal meth for pretty much everything that was wrong with him. He notoriously had a... what's it called? Irritable bowel syndrome or like some stomach problem like that. And he took meth for it. And then like eventually he kind of realized that his decisions were a little bit less in character. This is where I get a little bit conspiracy theory-ish. But the thing I'm about to say does hold up and is true in a sense. It's just not necessarily proven that these things are interconnected. But he was taking all this meth and he realized that he was behaving uncharacteristically in terms of his strategy. So he got rid of that doctor, and the new doctor was like, all right, no more meth. I don't know what it was called back then, but so the new doctor said no more meth, and then that was fine. Hitler went back to normal, and then he was like, nah, dude, I need the meth, and then sacked that doctor, got the old one back, and just started taking more meth. And it's kind of like Hitler fucked up real bad on D-Day. Like the reason that like the Allies were allowed to get as far as they did on D-Day is because Hitler was literally asleep because he stayed up all night watching movies.
Wow.
He had a diary where he noted every single movie that he watched and what he thought of it. Apart from his favorite guy was Charlie Chaplin, and he did watch The Dictator twice, but he never wrote a comment on it, which is pretty interesting. He was allegedly really hurt by that. And also it's been alleged that his square moustache comes from Charlie Chaplin himself because he absolutely idolized him and loved Hollywood, loved America, all that stuff.
Interesting.
But anyway, a lot of people think that it was the meth that pretty much made Hitler kind of lose his mind and make a lot of like weird decisions. And on top of that, the use of meth in Germany, this part is not proven at all, but it is alleged that the West Germany team that won the World Cup in 54 maybe or 58
56. Wait, did we have the Olympics in 2000?
We had a World Cup in 2002,
so Olympics in 2000.
Yeah.
So it would have been 56. That would have been 44 years before.
Okay, so either the 56 or the 60. No, because it was a World Cup in 66, so there would have been a World Cup in 58 and 54. So it was one of those World Cups that West Germany won, but it's alleged that those footballers in that West Germany team were high as balls on some form of performance-enhancing drug that consisted primarily of meth.
Wow.
There you go, kids. Take a shitload of meth. Great note to end this episode.
I'm just going to go get my meth.
Yeah, same. Smoke a bowl for me, friend. But, yeah, that's a good place to end it.
Cool. Yeah, that was. And it totally opens the door for more sort of in-depth, abstract. Yeah.
Dancing the whole night long. We were dancing the whole night long. We were dancing the whole night long. We were dancing the whole night long. Why don't you play the game? Why don't you play the game? I'm falling, falling, falling for you.
So there you have it, folks. Turns out it was the government all along. Anyway, that's the end of the episode. We're closing out with a Daft Punk medley from my homeboys, and I hope you guys really liked that episode. I thought it was a really fun kind of thing to do because it was a nice combination of humor and seriousness, which I kind of feel like maybe the podcast has been lacking in some way, and I feel like I've channeled it towards either or, and I think it can be both quite a lot of the time. So I have no idea what I'm doing for episode 80. I don't know if it's going to be a special episode or if it's going to be a standard episode, and we'll do a special one for 100 or 90 or 85 or whatever. But I just want to say thank you for all the support over the years up to this point. It's been incredible. I know that I'm inconsistent, but I want to assure you from the bottom of my heart that I do indeed try my hardest. But anyway, yeah, I've been El De Niro. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Talk to you guys later. Fuck this.
Feel it right, you wrap your arms around you. Suddenly, yeah, I can see the shining sun. Before I knew it, the dream was all gone. Before I knew it, the dream was all gone. We were dancing the whole night long. Before I knew it, the dream was all gone. Why don't you play the game? I'm falling, falling, falling for you. I'm falling, falling, falling for you. Yeah, I'm falling, falling, falling for you. I'm falling, falling, falling for you. Yeah, why don't you play the game? Why don't you play the game?